Welcome to today's episode of The Growth Zone. I am Christian Bartsch. What is the core benefit of listening to this show? Business leaders in corporate and privately held companies gain insights into trends and strategies that provide them with a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Each episode focuses on an area such as marketing, sales, innovation, or funding that is absolutely critical to the growth of companies, whether they are startups or corporate global players, where management needs to juggle the challenges of market entry or knowing how to navigate the uncertainties of disruptive developments. Mind feeding is where clarity evolves and helps solving organizational challenges. For those who listen to the entire episode, I have a special surprise gift. I am working on some great guests that are industry leaders in management, innovation, and marketing. Let's get started on today's episode. So I'm today with Marjorie and we are going to talk about following topic: how startups can benefit from closing the venture capital or angel investor diversity gap. But before we get started into our topic, Marjorie, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself, please?
Happy to. Thank you for having me. Presently, I'm a board member, investor, and consultant to mostly early stage companies. I've been investing actively for more than 5 years through Launchpad Venture Group, which is the largest angel investment group in the Northeast US and the third largest group in the entire US. We focus primarily on high tech and life science. I'm also a member of Bartsch Venture Group, a US-based angel network which invests exclusively in food-related startups. Prior to this, after graduating from my MBA school, I went to Silicon Valley. My role was expanding markets globally for a number of software companies in Silicon Valley. While in Silicon Valley, a tiny company from Boston reached out to me, which wanted to scale internationally, knew I was doing this in Silicon Valley, and asked me to join their board. And within 6 months of being on the board, I was asked to join the organization to be part of it. So I took a big cut and pay from Silicon Valley, took a good equity position, and joined the company in food diagnostics, which is called Vicam. And the mission of this company was to increase the safety of the global food supply. And I applied much of the same principles in distributing software, which I did in Silicon Valley, worldwide to growing Vicam as well. And I took the company from one country to over 100 countries. Because Vicam was funded by angel investors, I knew I needed to plan for an exit in the form of a sale to a bigger company or a private equity firm. The exit needed to be successful for all stakeholders, including employees, customers, and investors. I pulled the exit team together and led an investment banking effort that received 5 offers at the end of the day. We selected the best offer for our customers, employees, and investors. It came from Waters Corporation. They had a core business and several fairly autonomous business units, which Vichem became one of them.
Sounds really fascinating, interesting, and it's not a very typical, let's say, startup. When you think of it, it's a very niche business.
Yes, that's right. It is.
Yeah. So, as we were going to talk about diversity and how it actually affects not only startups, but as well, of course, venture capital, and let's say those who are willing to invest, the angel investors who have more beneficial ideas and so on, rather than those who are just in to get a maximum profit and then have no relationship with it, like compared to what you, for instance, did, where you actually go in the board and eventually become one of them. How do you see actually the challenges that people have when their conflict with diversity and other kind of items in life and business?
I think it's really just a matter of having an open mind and realizing the benefits of diversity. If I look to the angel groups I'm in and the portfolio of companies that I'm in, the diverse companies do extremely well. So it's a matter of not having the mentality to not shut oneself out of all the opportunities available to one. And as many people know, and there's been McKinsey study on this, diverse companies in all different types of diversities just do better overall. I think what's also happening, which is really important, is that angel investor networks and groups have now about 25% women. I don't know that that's the same in Europe. I can say that is about what it is in the US. VCs are a bit less, but there's more and more women in these groups, and also people of color in the groups as well. That's going to increase the amount of investment, just because entrepreneurs will see that there's an openness in the group, and they'll be much more comfortable presenting if they see people that look like them that are actually investors.
Yeah, that makes actually makes a lot of sense, because when you think, even if you say in Europe, there are plenty people that maybe look alike to a certain degree, but the cultural background is different. Let's say if you compare, for instance, people who've grown up in Poland compared to people in Germany or in Netherlands, countries beside each other, different language, similarities between the Dutch and the Germans, but still it's a difference. And even side of Germany, there are differences. And the same would be the UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, all different cultures, different attitudes, and different ways of speaking, different ways of looking at things. And if you at least have a feeling that the other one opposite is maybe understands you, or you believe they understand your ideas, your values, and maybe your mission, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at these things with diversity, how can really startups benefit from it when they're trying to get the funding? Because that's usually, you have like the seed funding and then round A and so on, and usually that's the most challenging for them to get the pitching and all the other things.
Absolutely, it is. I think for all types of entrepreneurs of all different backgrounds. But I have about 8 specific tips on this, and I think it really pays to do one's research. And I know there's the Angel Capital Association in the U.S., and you probably know of an association also with angels in Europe too. But look for different angel groups in your particular area and do the research in terms of where they invest geographically, or don't they have a geographical bent? For example, Branch Venture Group that I'm in, which invests in food and food tech, has a broad look at, but that has to be a food or food tech company, whereas Launchpad Venture Group is solely companies in the Northeast ecosystem. Also, reach out and do your research on LinkedIn and link to angels. They may not be able to help you specifically, or maybe they can and invest in your area. But reach out and they'll have some specific ideas. Additionally, what one should do is look, there's a lot of accelerators out there, and you can really gain a lot of connections with those accelerators. Mass Challenge is a good one, which is all over. And as far as the business itself, this is what one needs to look at. Really look at showing some traction. I think most investors are not going to invest unless there's a proof of concept. And so it's important to have some traction in regard to that. Really, and then really know one's numbers. Put together a 5-year P&L. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just the broad strokes of revenue, expenses, bottom line, and realize that investors are not going to look for, usually over the first 2 years, a profitability on those first 2 years, but they'll be looking for more, obviously, revenues and profitability later on. And to make sure you have a solid team. And it's important to have a balance of technical wizardry and high-level business know-how. And there needs to be a coachability component too of the CEO. There's an openness to listening to feedback. Feedback always doesn't have to be taken totally and done exactly so, but listen and see what may be appropriate. The other thing is realistic valuations. And it's important. Investors want to invest for a return, and we can only invest in return if there's a realistic valuation to start with. And then show potential exits of other similar companies out there so the investor can see in their head what's going to happen in the future and the profit possibility for exit that has been done in a similar space. And this may sound just intuitive, but just it does have to be stated. And most entrepreneurs are very respectful, but it's important that one shows respect throughout the process, whether that be an investor or entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And when you think, as you mentioned before, of course, realistic valuation and the different kind of situations, at least what I experience as well. Some businesses you have practically a complete new business that you start up, and some situations maybe you have the opportunity to take over an existing company and it's maybe there already for 10, 20 years. And then it's like an investment. It's not startup, but if you go and redefine it, restructure it, you can turn it into a startup. It's just like taking out the best parts, putting them newly in, getting new team to management team and everything, and rebuilding it. But nevertheless, at the end, as you say, it has to have proper, realistic return of investment, because of course you're spending money and you want to somehow get it back with at least an acceptable benefit, better than putting it on a bank account.
No, absolutely. And with that, I think there's a lot of interest. What's changed over the last few years is there's been always there were strategic investors, and typically angels would invest, and there'd be a strategic investor. Sometimes same with VCs that invest. But right now, and I'd say for the last 3 or so years, private equity. There's been exits in terms of private equity firm where the private equity firm buys either all or part of the business and tries to scale it even more. But this way, investors can get liquefied if they want their whole holdings or even part of their holdings and keep some of them in there.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. I see it from things that I'm as well involved with. It's similar where we've targeted 1 or 2 or 3 companies and we're trying to acquire them and then improve them. Refurbish them, as you could say. It's like
Right.
buying a building and you chuck out all the old furniture, put in new, tear down some walls, put some new rooms, new things and so on, improve the equipment and everything. And sometimes as well the mindset and maybe as well even getting it as far that it actually flies higher than it used to do before and be more successful by giving it the extra money. It needs to be stronger and better because there's already a ground stock that's already good. But if you don't update it, refresh it, it can't go higher, can't fly higher, like a plane. If you haven't got the right fuel in it, it just can't fly further and higher. Yeah, and that's the thing, as you say. Look at it, diversity. Diversity is different. Can be from color, gender, other kind of diversities, and that. Where you think as well, what can you really improve? And yeah, and once they've got the money, then of course, maybe there's a different kind of way to improving the relationship with the investors, benefiting maybe even from the relationship with the angel investor. What's your experience in there? How can an angel investor in such a diverse, let's say, situation can help them even better to thrive?
I think the angel investor, whether it's, I think, always encouraging that there be some diversity, because in terms of performance, that's one thing that can happen. Also, what often happens in companies is there's a need for board membership. For example, I've been on the board. I was working with a particular company, and there was a need for both one to have the talents, but also to have diversity on the board. That happens quite a bit. But it's looking at it really, having it from the start, because a company that starts by being diverse ends up continuing that way, and vice versa. So just encouraging that, both that particular diversity, but also with that, bring in all the right skill sets, so the businesses will thrive.
Yeah, and skill set is so important nowadays because it's not about equipment; it's about heads and attitudes, knowledge, and talent.
That's right. That's right. And I also think what's happening is there's just so many more, and there will be more in the future. Very, very successful entrepreneurs of all different backgrounds. One of the companies that I am actually a board advisor on, it's called Food Space. It's a Black entrepreneur. His name is Ayo Ashkenaki, and he started this company with the mission that there should be more transparency in terms of when you order online. And with the global pandemic, we're all ordering much more online, and there's more transparency that needs to happen. But he has assembled quite a diverse team, and he very quickly moved from angel investment. Now it's VC investment also. He also won the prize for Salesforce.com in terms of the top entrepreneur who's Black. And I believe it was just confined to the US population, but there's more and more examples of that. Another woman and a company that I invested in, it's called Torgen. And what she is doing is totally transforming the way we care for our pets if they happen to develop cancer. So if a pet developed cancer, typically there'd be radiation and chemo, same as in the human population. But what she did is she had developed a particular way to have a shot that would be delivered to them that would be a personalized immunotherapy. So they wouldn't need to go through chemo or radiation, but could have 3 shots instead that would reduce and many times eliminate the cancer. And the dogs would live and have lived many more months and years because of that. But she is just an amazing woman. And she also was noted in Forbes 30 under 30 for science.
Ah, yeah. So then she's actually developing, let's say, a more specialized or focused service for the pet instead of doing like everybody the same thing or every. It's like when you go to a doctor, he looks at, instead of just saying, okay, you've got this and this, he actually takes time and thinks, well, he can't give you this medicine because you're allergic to it. And if we treat pets just like every pet the same, it would be just giving the same kind of stuff to a pet that's allergic to that stuff, instead of she's actually trying to customize it really to the needs of that pet.
Absolutely, she certainly is, and exactly for each individual one, it's more significant, it's less expensive. Also, another company that I'm working with that has a his name is Ed Golich, and he runs QSM Diagnostics, and I'm actually on the board there too. And what they do is, and I don't know about this in Europe, but in the US, one often, if there's an ear infection in a pet who happens to go swimming a lot, it's the summer, and it develops Pseudomonas, you need to go to the vet, get a swab, have it sent to a laboratory. So it takes quite a while to get that the information back. But what he's done is create rapid diagnostics. So you go to the vet's office, there's a swab taken, a rapid diagnostic is used, and there's an answer, and you walk out with your medicine. Less expensive for the consumer, easier for the vet, overall a better solution. And he also, in terms of diversity, has a very diverse team.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because when you think even in typical medicine approach that's usually taught in universities, it's not always the same as other kind of medicine stuff. Or let's look, for instance, even at Chinese medicine or other kind of medicines where they actually take your pulse and so on and know by certain things that you obviously have this and this problem. And you think, I didn't tell him, but I know that I've got this problem, but how did it find out? Just by feeling my pulse. I think, okay. And there's some other things where they look at your eyes and they can notice, okay, you have this and this problem. I think, how does it know it? But is he right? And the same thing with all these things as well. There's so many things that nowadays we don't really know. And then we're looking and suddenly something, hey, how do they manage to do that? There's so much that is untapped knowledge, because, for instance, when you look at history, the Egyptians, for instance, they had lots of stuff. They even did complex operations and so on. And then the Middle Ages, so much knowledge was gone, and then it had to be refound again. And it's huge. And as you say, for animals, using certain kind of treatments and diagnostics, there's so much an opportunity there that we can do so that the animals as well have less pain, and we treat them instead of just straight away putting them down and giving them a chance, because they maybe as well want to continue to live and enjoy life. And it's not just us.
Absolutely, that's right. And also, there's a lot of application later on for some of those same developments in veterinary medicine to reach human clinical as well, whether it be on the diagnostic or therapeutic level.
That's great. So, as you've shown as well from the explanations that these different companies where you're, for instance, involved there, they're not only just diverse by what they're doing, but as well by those who are leading them, those who are participating in a startup. And it's actually quite an interesting area to be in.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And there's just so much through the angel groups that I've been in and through the whole ecosystem, I've seen thousands of presentations. It's just a very exciting environment out there for angels, for entrepreneurs, very dynamic. And and there's a lot of things that cross a lot of boundaries, whether that be distribution of the product, licensing of technologies, collaborations as well.
Exactly. And all these services, they won't have any borders. And when you think of it, even a diverse team that has people of all different origins, genders, and so on, and nationalities and so on, when once they want to leave the country and conquer new markets, it'll be much easier for them than others who just know their vicinity and don't understand that other people think differently. It'll be much easier for those who are diverse to actually go even across the pond and gain large proportions, especially when you think of it, areas like Europe, where you've got so many smaller countries, and every country is diverse by language, by currency, by traditions, and so on. Much more diverse than you, for instance, would see in the US, where you can compare New York with Texas and California. There's a certain diversity there already, but it's not as much as in Europe or take Asia. Huge differences.
No, absolutely. You're right about that. And I think what's happening, even though we may be able not to be on planes as much as we used to be, the actual collaborations are increasing in terms of this pandemic because people are working a lot of times from home or in a hybrid type of environment. And really, I see the opening up. I mean, I'm lucky to have a conversation with you in Europe. I'm also part of a network in Europe, which is called Manatee Mentors, which matches up mentors with either companies, individuals, both in terms of entrepreneurship, but many, many other areas. There's called One Valley in Silicon Valley, which covers the whole world. And I've spoken to many. You talked at the beginning about India, how there is such a rich startup ecosystem. But I see that the world is really opening up, and there's an awful lot of collaborations going on, and there's a real need for that in the world. There was some before, but I even think with this, it's counterintuitive, but with the pandemic, there's even more so.
Yeah, and when you think of it before, we used to have like 10 years ago, so we had the traditional outsourcing model. You would outsource to India, you'd have programmers and so on. And before that, you had all the people who entered all the data from the yellow pages and so on into databases, which was just manual labor, but they were not using actually the potential of people. And you think it's just crazy because the universities in India who put out thousands and thousands of fantastic IT people, programmers, engineers, mathematicians, and so on, who are really powerful in what they're doing. And even in areas in business and culture and art and so on, there's a lot of they're available. And once they're leaving their countries, they actually notice, hey, I can use my talent and there's more opportunities. I don't maybe have certain kind of limitations because of local culture. But then you see there's huge stuff. And I was just recently looking at a startup who are in, we call it 5G technology and so on. And they're bringing 5G in an affordable way to rural areas in India. But the thing is, they are already connecting and doing business together, partnerships with large companies in US and in Europe, which usually wouldn't even make the effort to talk to such small startups in a place like India. And that's a huge potential for them because they have great technology and Europeans and US say, oh, great, because we have problems in other areas where it's just not affordable to set up an expensive system for $1 million just to cover an area where there are 20 cows. It's no point. But the Indians know how to do it so that even if there's one farmer in the place and with his 25 cows, it's still affordable because in summer everybody goes there and is camping there and everybody suddenly needs 5G. Wow, you can generate revenue. And there are other areas as well, like food and so on. There's so much stuff happening. Or just look, for instance, at Spotify. Spotify is based in Sweden and they have programmers from everywhere. They've got American programmers, right. They've got Swedish, Finnish, Dutch, Norwegian, Germans, all different nations. And they're quite successful in what they're doing. They're doing music, podcast areas. It's quite a diverse thing. And when you look at, for instance, the programmers who are sharing stuff on Twitter and so on, you actually see they're obviously getting quite well along with each other and enjoying their work and living as well, maybe in other countries. And that's a huge potential when you look even at smaller startups and thinking, okay, but maybe somebody from Europe, some people from Asia, from the Middle East, USA, Canada, Mexico, and so on. People are living in the same place and people are living maybe abroad and working from distance and that. So when you look at that, do you actually think there's something that startups, beside your 8 suggestions that you gave, that they should look towards as well when they're wanting to find the right match of investors, capital, and so on?
Again, I think it's best to really look at the angel associations. And actually, some angel association, just because an angel group is located in the US doesn't mean they don't invest in India or Germany or Switzerland. It's not. It's really specific areas. It pays to do one's homework in terms of really trying to identify both the angel groups and the venture capital groups that invest in your particular area, whether that be a geographical area or a functional area. And that way, and then LinkedIn is just a wonderful tool to reach out to. I know people reach out to me all the time on LinkedIn for, as I mentioned before, various suggestions or specifically to the groups that I'm part of. There's just so much out there and so many. I think what's important for entrepreneurs to understand, and all entrepreneurs, diverse entrepreneurs, white men, others, it's just that investors are really looking for terrific investments. They don't want to miss out on a really interesting investment that they could really change the world, have an impact, get a sizable return on. It's just as important. Don't feel that you're out there just fighting the fight and trying to get investment in. Investors are doing the same thing. They're trying to locate those terrific companies.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, of course, locating as well the things that they actually understand about. It would be like, for instance, deciding to invest in, let's say, rocket science when you don't actually understand the whole stuff and you think, I just still can't understand it. Or like, for instance, medical stuff, and you think, oh, when I think of medical, I faint. Then I won't be handling medical but if I'm interested in automotive, aviation, and so on, then I'll be maybe an investor who's willing to invest in someone who wants to invent the next flying car or whatever, or the next submarine who can dig a hole downwards towards the other part of the world or whatever, or shortcut or flying around. There's so much stuff happening and so many ideas and people inventing tools, inventing medicine and software and all that kind of things and services and so on. It's a huge, huge variety. It's been great having you here on the show, Marjorie. How can people actually get in contact with you if they want to have a conversation with you, or where can they get more insights, more information?
Okay, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Marjorie Radlo-Zandi. Just look me up and connect with me. Send me a short note and connect with me. Also, if you'd like to see some of the companies that I invested in, a little bit more about my background, it's my company name is Jazzaz, JAZZAS.com. And the two groups, again, that I am part of are these Launchpad Venture Group and Branch Venture Group as well.
Great.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun and a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Growth Zone with Christian Bartsch. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review or rating here on iTunes or on podchaser.com. If you found the content helpful, then share it on social media. I would like to invite you to follow our show so that you don't miss the upcoming interviews with leaders in the market. Simply visit the website follow.prmediareach.com. I will be adding the link also to the description of this episode so that you just need to click on that link. For those of you who are listening and signing up to follow the show, I have reserved a free copy of the Ultimate Guide on Content Marketing. This is the strategy that got me top corporate clients like McDonald's, Linde, Hewlett-Packard, Deutsche Bank, Volvo, and many others. That strategy has been working for over 10 years. It also got me contracts with police, transport authorities, military, and several universities, and even leading research institutes. For sure, it also worked wonders as it got me many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises as clients. And that even included international clients from all around the world. The link to sign up for our free broadcasting service and the guide is follow.prmediareach.com. That will give you access to the most recent version of my ultimate guide on content marketing. You can follow me as well on Twitter by using the Twitter handle CAP Bartsch. That's spelled Charlie Alpha Papa Bravo Alpha Romeo Tango Sierra Charlie Hotel. Yes, that is CAP Bartsch. Charlie Alpha Papa Bravo Alpha Romeo Tango Sierra Charlie Hotel.